This is the hardest thing I ever had to do in my life. I just want my baby to come home, and if you see anything or think you've seen her, please call so she can come home and she can be okay.
On Monday, September 26, 2016, 21-year-old Keeshae Jacobs of Richmond, Virginia, left her home and headed to a friend's house near Chimborazo Park in the Churchill area and has not been seen since. Keeshae was born on August 6, 1995. She was described as quiet and loyal. 2 days after she went missing, her friends came to her mom, Toni Jacobs, and took her to the house where Keeshae was last seen. When she knocked on the door, a man named Otis Tucker answered the door. He stated he knew Keeshae and he had seen her on the day she disappeared, but he kept changing parts of his story. Toni felt that something was not right. She went to the authorities and begged them to thoroughly investigate Otis. She was convinced he had something to do with her daughter's disappearance. Nothing came out of the investigation. He was allowed to go free until later that year when he pleaded guilty to strangulation and unlawful bodily injury of another female. There was also an R charge, but that was dropped. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison. While incarcerated, he was sentenced to an additional 2 years for beating another inmate, but for some reason, that charge was dropped. He was released on probation this year and moved to Jacksonville, Florida, to live with his fiancée. In July 2022, he was arrested again for making false 911 calls and lying to police. He was supposed to have a warrant for violation of his parole, but that never happened. On Tuesday, November 1st, 2022, Jacksonville police were called to the Auburn Glen apartment complex in the 8000 block of Southside Boulevard at around 9 p.m. Neighbors had reported hearing a disturbance. They had heard screaming and loud banging coming from one of the apartments. They also saw a man fleeing through the back door of the building. When police searched the residence, they found a deceased woman inside. She had been beaten and strangled. The victim was 34-year-old Ashley Denise Fowler, a mother of 3. Her family has said they don't know Otis. What they do know is that Ashley used to walk through the Auburn Glen complex as a shortcut. Seems she was just a random victim that he preyed upon. Ashley was described as funny, goofy, and full of life. She also loved her kids. Her world revolved around them.
She was funny, she was goofy.
Taylor Fowler says life will never be the same without his sister Ashley. She leaves behind 3 sons.
When she loved her kids, that was definitely her focus.
On Tuesday night, JSO reports officers found her body on the living room floor of an apartment at the Auburn Glen complex after getting a call about a disturbance. A neighbor said they heard banging and screaming. Fowler says his sister was beaten and strangled, but they're still waiting on the official autopsy.
It was unbelievable. It still doesn't feel real right now.
Otis Tucker is now charged with tampering with evidence and murder.
When news broke about what happened to Ashley, Keeshae's mother was devastated. She had been advocating for Otis to stay in prison. The authorities had fumbled the investigation about her daughter, and now another family has to suffer.
The police department wasn't done from the beginning when I reported Keeshae missing, because it took them a whole week before that they even took any interest or tried to do anything with Keeshae's case.
Tony has had to deal with massive grief while searching for her child. 3 months after Keeshae went missing, her son was murdered. Otis has been charged with the second-degree murder of Ashley and tampering with evidence. There is still no word on what happened to Keeshae. She is still missing. Please keep the loved ones of everyone affected by these tragedies in your thoughts and prayers.